A dark chocolate tres leches. You've never seen this before. Hi everybody and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to go in a baking direction. Now I know you guys really love tres leches cake, but I'd always wanted to do a dark chocolate tres leches. There's no recipes out there for that. So in our test kitchen, we set out to create one, and I can tell you that after a dozen tests, we've got something spectacular to share with you. A single layer dark chocolate tres leches cake that will blow you away. Okay, so how do we get the dark chocolate? We're going to start with the extra dark cocoa powder. If you haven't discovered this stuff, it is so delicious because it creates a darker chocolate flavor. And I've got some in a bowl here, and I will tell you a little trick that I've been using for many, many years, and that is to bloom the flavor of it in a hot liquid. So I have half a cup of espresso here. All of the measurements are in the recipe that is linked to this video here. So I'm just pouring that over the top of the cocoa powder, the extra dark cocoa powder, and then stir it until you have a smooth mixture. And that heat and that moisture will give this an even richer chocolate flavor. Okay, we've got that part of it. Now, we're going to make in this bowl all of the wet ingredients for this dark chocolate sponge cake is really what it is, because in making tres leches, you have to have a sponge cake that can absorb all of the beautiful flavors that you're going to infuse it with. So this is going to get some oil now and some sugar. And I'm going to give it a tablespoon of coffee liqueur. This is Kahlua. Everybody knows Kahlua. Maybe you have another favorite one. We're using a lot of Mr. Black coffee liqueur in our restaurants, and I really like that one. Stir all of this together again until it comes together in a smooth mixture. And now we're on to the eggs for this. So I am going to start cracking these eggs and put the whites in my mixer bowl, the yolks over here, except that I have 5 eggs and 5 whites will go here, but only 3 yolks will go in this part of it. Now, I like to do the separating in my hand because my hand is very soft here and it doesn't break the yolks, because remember, the egg whites will not whip if you get traces of yolk in there. So I'm going to put the 3 yolks, very fresh eggs. The whites are coming off kind of slowly from these. I crack it in there. Now we've got this is a very fresh egg. The fresher they are, the slower the white will separate from the yolk there. Okay, now I've got a little bowl here for my last 2 yolks. Now, see, this is where you can really, working with your hands like this, it's way easier because I can use the soft fingertips to go in, since I dropped that whole yolk in there, and pull that out off to the side there. And then we're going to start beating the egg whites. I'm going to start on a kind of medium speed here in the mixer. And then we're going to eventually start putting in here, oops, I guess I better get the beater on there. We're going to eventually start adding some sugar to it to stabilize the egg yolks. So while those are starting to beat there, I'm going to finish our wet ingredients here by continuing to beat everything together, breaking up those 3 yolks that are in there. I'll get rid of these things over here. Same with that. And now on, while those whites are beating, to the dry ingredients. I've already measured all of the flour in here. So I'm going to put, it's a generous teaspoon of baking powder here. If you're being very precise, it's a teaspoon and a quarter, about a half a teaspoon here of salt. Salt in all baking is really useful because it adds a contrasting flavor that will heighten everything else. So I'm just using a little whisk here to mix all of those things together. No sifting or anything like that needed in this particular preparation. Okay, so let's go back over here. I'm going to raise the speed a little bit. When I get to what I would call very soft peaks, past that foamy stage where you start to see it really get some volume and the peaks will sort of like start to form, that's the moment that I'm going to start adding the sugar. Now, the sugar you have to be patient with because you want to put it in about a tablespoon or so at a time. And after each one of those tablespoons, you need to beat it for about 20 or 30 seconds, something like that, to get it to dissolve. If you add it all at once, it will deflate the whites. So you want to be very patient as you're adding the sugar to it. Okay, it's at the right stage to start adding the sugar, but I want to show you what that looks like. It's holding its shape a little bit, but this is what I would call very, very soft peaks. Okay, now, a tablespoon at a time, we're going to add this in and beat it for about 20 or 30 seconds after each one. Okay, I want to show you this. After that last addition, I let it go for another, I would say 30 or 40 seconds. And so it's got that, it's really high volume now, but it's got a silkiness that is just beautiful. And we are ready to put all of this together. So the dry ingredients are going to go into the wet ingredients, and then just use a spatula to mix them in. This will thicken up the wet ingredients. Okay. Now on to folding in these beautiful beaten egg whites. The first quarter or so of the egg whites, I kind of sacrifice to loosen this up. So I'm just going to stir them into the fairly thick base that we're working with here. That will lighten it very well. And now, in about 3 additions, I will fold in the egg whites. If you haven't done this before, the technique that I like to use is to cut right down through the egg whites and then sort of spread them out over the top, coming up from the bottom. And that's, as you can see, where the whole concept of folding comes from, because you're sort of cutting down in it and folding what's underneath over onto the rest of it. When you have nothing but little tiny streaks of the egg white, then you can go on to your next addition. And now the last bit of egg white. So just spread it out over the top or scoop it onto the top here. And then cut down through it and fold up over. Okay, there's almost no traces of egg white anywhere. That's exactly what we're looking for here. Let's talk about the pan. So this is a 9-inch cake pan. And I have lined it with a piece of parchment paper cut to fit the bottom here. But as different from lots of cake recipes, we are not going to grease and flour this one at all, because this is a sponge cake and it needs to actually hold on to the sides of the pan as it expands and goes up. And then it stays that way as it cools and it doesn't deflate. Okay, so now our mixture, with as little deflation as possible, we'll scoop it here. So when I said that, what I really meant is I get down close to the level of the cake pan so I can scoop it in, and it doesn't have very much distance to go. We'll sit there. Got my oven heated to 325 degrees, and this will take between 35 and 40 minutes to cook. A little bit lower temperature than maybe you have baked cakes at before. The rack of the oven is in the middle there, because you want to get even heat all the way around. I'll meet you back when this is done. The cake is done, but I want to show you exactly what that looks like. It domes just a little bit. It will settle as it cools. This is a cake tester. Those of you that are really into cake baking will want to get one of these, but you can use a toothpick for this as well. So you're going to go right into the middle of it and then pull it out. There's nothing on there at all. So that says that it's set all the way to the inside, but you should always touch the cakes as well, just to get a sense of what it's like, what that spring is like when a cake is done. This one is great. I'm gonna let these cool for about 10 minutes. No more than that. We're going to turn it out, and during that time, I will show you how to make the soaking liquid. Tres leches is all about tres leches, 3 milks. So the 3 classic ones are sweetened condensed milk, evaporated milk, and whole milk. So we're going to combine those all in a small saucepan because I want to warm this mixture up. But we're going to take it into that coffee chocolate world by adding some other flavors. So first, let's get the milks in here. We've got our sweetened condensed milk already measured. It's sticky stuff, so I went ahead and measured it ahead of time in here so that I didn't have to do that in front of you. I'm adding the evaporated milk, which always gives a caramel-like flavor. That's one of the reasons it's there. And then, of course, the light freshness of the whole milk. So those are all in there now. You know, all around the world, sweetened condensed milk is a big deal in desserts, especially in warm climate places. And so you find everybody's got their own. This is the version that you can find in all of the Mexican grocery stores. Yes, it's a Nestle product, but it's called La Lechera, same as the one that you could find in a regular grocery store with another name. Now, the things that are going to give this its special quality are some of that really extra dark cocoa powder. I'm going to add that to the pan as well. A couple of tablespoons of strong coffee or espresso. I need to give it a dash of vanilla. I'm using Mexican vanilla here. It has such a light, flowery flavor. About a teaspoon of that goes in there. I happen to just love vanilla, so I always put a little bit more. And then a tablespoon of coffee liqueur will go in there. And then whisk it together. I don't know about you, but I find a lot of use for a small whisk. I never had a small whisk for a really long time, and now I feel like I couldn't live without it. It'll take a second for the cocoa powder to get fully integrated into this mixture, and then I'm going to set it on the heat here and let that warm through. In just, I'm going to say 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to be turning this out and we'll start the soak. Okay, it's been 10 minutes since this came out of the oven. You can see that it has settled really beautifully. It's completely flat on the top. The edges have pulled away. Remember, we didn't grease this pan at all. But just to make sure that it's completely free, I run a knife around the outside. And because we put that paper on the bottom, we can be sure that this is going to come out nice. I always turn, I'm going to just tell you one thing about this. This platter is not completely flat. It has a little raised edge around it. That's actually very nice because we're going to be putting the soaking 3 milks on top of it. And if any runs off, it's going to be caught around the outside. So flip your presentation plate upside down and then invert the two like that. And if everything goes exactly right, we should be able to lift that off and then very gently start peeling this paper off. I always go around the outside first to get it started, so I'm not tearing anything, and then just keep going toward the center like that. And we have all of that off. Get rid of that one over there. We've got our warmed tres leches, chocolate coffee tres leches here. And we will start the soaking. You will notice that right away that the mixture will start soaking into it. I always start at the center because that's the hardest part to soak, and really put most of my attention there and then work my way out to the outside of the cake here. Now, a lot of people will tell you they poke holes in it. You really don't have to poke holes in it, but if you have a skewer, you could poke a few holes. I guess that's supposed to open up more pores in there, but I don't find that you really have to. We make a lot of tres leches cakes at work, and we never poke any of them. But if it makes you feel better, you should poke holes in it. Now, this is going to take some time. I would say you have to dedicate 15 or 20 minutes to making sure. Don't try to push this. Wait until you see that it completely absorbs before you add another round of the tres leches mixture. The 3 milks have completely saturated the cake now. I don't know if you can see this, but you see no pooling liquid at all. That's what you really need. And after the soaking period, that 15 minutes or so, you really need to let this cool off completely. You might even want to put it into the refrigerator before you finish the cake. Now, finishing the cake, you've got lots of different options here. This is so rich and so beautiful, 1 layer is perfect. But I have whipped some cream here that is unsweetened. Okay, I didn't put, but you might want to put a little bit of sugar in there. Because of the natural sweetness here, you might want to put a spoonful of sour cream into the cream to offer a different kind of contrast to this. But I'm going to just do a very simple frosting of the whipped cream here. Okay, I'm filling in the last few holes here, and then I'm going to give it a good once over to even everything out here. You can use an offset spatula like this one. It's easiest for the top. You can use a straight one, is best for the sides. I'm going to go around here and even it up, but I see a couple places where chocolate cake is peeking through. So we'll go around like this and just even up the sides, which will push some of the whipped cream to the top. Another place where I see a little bit of cake peeking there. That should do that. And then I can switch over to this offset spatula and then just come in from the sides like that to give us a flat top. Easy to work with whipped cream. To me, it's easier than working with the buttercream. Got a little spot there to fill in. I think I made it worse than it was before. Okay, and now we'll talk about some garnishes. A sprinkling of the cocoa powder is always welcome here. If you want to get a little fancier, since this is such an absolutely spectacular cake, you could do chocolate curls. You just have to have the bar of chocolate at the exact right temperature. Microwave might be helpful for that. Just little bits and pieces of heat into it so that when you take a vegetable peeler to your block of chocolate, you can get the curls off like these over there. That's kind of what I'm gonna use, I think, here. But Pirouette cookies, you could just break these into smaller pieces and pile them in the middle here. That would be the easiest thing to do. I'm going to set that bowl over there and take these chocolate curls and put them in the middle here, or at least some of them in the middle. Certainly dresses up this gorgeous cake here. Beautiful. I've got a little bit of the cocoa powder here, which I can sprinkle over everything like that. Oh my God, this is so beautiful. I want to cut a piece of it for you. Cut down through here. Oh, by the way, you'll want to keep this cake refrigerated until you're ready to serve it. But then just bring it straight from the refrigerator to the dinner table. Let's see how this came out. Oh, beautiful. This is certainly the moment I have been waiting for. All of the deep dark chocolate flavor I was looking for.